Future trading involves risk and is not suitable for all investors. Content provided in this segment is meant for educational purposes and is not a solicitation to buy or sell commodities.
Hello and welcome to the September 5th edition of Basis Loaded with Joe Schmit. I am Joe Schmit. This episode, as always, is produced by Paige Driscoll with help from the Everag Insights team. It is an absolutely glorious Midwestern early fall, late summer day prior to the first NFL kickoff tonight. What better way to celebrate than with the latest from the NDPSR report? And we'll start this week with butter. This butter number coming in at 313.82 represents a -2 to the CME 1-week average of 315.90. So negative basis, 42 loads traded on the CME last week. Those 42 loads could have gone a long way in pulling this basis down. You'll notice that the volume here on the NDPSR, almost 3.8 million pounds. So good volume. The 42 loads traded at the CME definitely had an impact. And the big volume at the CME are translating here to the NDPSR with almost 5.4 million pounds registered on the sales report last week, 3.8 this week. Negative basis at the very high end of the range for butter, but you'll take it as long as the manufacturer is able to move close to 3.8 million pounds per week. Up next is cheese, this block number 206.01. That is a +1 to the CME 1-week average of 204.95. So big gains at the CME. The NDPSR struggling to keep up, however, moving 6 cents higher week to week on the NDPSR. +1 is disappointing basis. However, when you consider the big gains that we have seen at the CME, you would expect lower than normal or even negative basis. What you wouldn't expect with big gains at the CME is this lackluster sales volume, short of 8.8 million pounds. So a big disappointment on volume. The manufacturer was able to call a high price. However, end users, it looks like for the most part, thoroughly turned their nose up at that high price level, with only 8.8 million pounds trading well below our expected sales volume. Story similar in the barrels, 221.74. That is a +1 to the CME 2-week average of 220.45. We traded 5 loads on the CME, so not a lot of activity there. Not a whole lot of volume here on the NDPSR report, just a little bit over 11.7 million pounds. So again, a big weekly gain week to week on the NDPSR, going from 209 to almost 222. So a big jump. Anything over 10 cents week to week on the NDPSR is definitely something that should be noted. So the manufacturer was able to call a higher price, similar to the gains that we're seeing at the CME. However, at that elevated price level, no demand. Makes you wonder how we got the higher price at the CME in the first place. 11.7 million pounds, certainly a disappointment in the barrel and significantly lower than expected basis on both the blocks and barrels. All in all, you have to call that higher than expected price, lower than expected volume, disappointing basis for cheese. And then the whey, 51.16. So this is our first move on the NDPSR north of the 50 cent level. The CME averaged 55.90 that week, so we'll call that a -4 basis. We traded 9 loads on the CME last week, so a little bit of volume at the CME. Volume here on the NDPSR, a lot lower than expected, falling short of the 3.8 million pound level. So price-wise, again, this seems to be a similar theme on this week's NDPSR report. Price-wise, it's a really nice number, 51.16. More than 2 cents higher than the August 17th NDPSR. So the manufacturer was able to call a 2 cent premium over prior week's NDPSR. However, at that elevated level, just short of 3.8 million pounds sold. And we have been getting big week-to-week gains on the NDPSR, and the manufacturer at that elevated level has been able to achieve outsized sales volume, with most of these weekly NDPSR volumes surpassing our expected 4.5 million pound threshold. Here, we see a big weekly gain albeit it's at a negative basis to the CME in relation to prior week's NDPSR. A 2-cent gain is a big move. However, at that elevated level, buyers not that enthusiastic, short of 3.8 million pounds in sales. And then lastly, non-fat, 123.59. That's essentially a flat basis to the CME 1-week average of 123.80. Big week on the CME. We traded 40 loads at the CME. So as far as sales volume goes, second only to butter last week. A lot of enthusiasm on the CME. Can't say as much here on the NDPSR. 16.7 million pounds on a flat basis. All in all, price is still above that 123 level and holding firm. However, the volumes have been meager at best. It'll be interesting to see what the manufacturer is able to sell now that prices of the CME have taken another leg higher. So this is week 5 of 5 for the August pricing cycle. August class 3 went off at 20.66. August class 4, 21.58. If you carry current CME equivalents out through the remainder of the September 4-week pricing cycle, getting a September class 3 of 23 even, and wait for it, September class 4 22.62. So for the first time in a long time, if things at the CME hold at their current levels, we would expect to have class 3 trade at a premium to class 4. We'll see what they have in store for us in the weeks to come. Until then, on behalf of Paige and the entire EverAg Insights team, I'm Joe. Thanks so much. See you next week. Bye.